but realizing, along with everybody on our panel and other people in our community, and especially our resource agency people here, that Fremont County does indeed have a problem. And it's time to get our heads out of the sand, embrace it, and start working together if we're going to even take a dent out of the war that's been going on around us for a very long time. I'm so thankful for you to be here. I'm going to do some housekeeping things. If you have not purchased your lunch tickets, you can go up and Judy is taking tickets still. We're going to have you circle around and your ticket will be taken. And you can do that now. We're going to work through this in order to get it done, hopefully by 1 o'clock. So I hope you don't mind eating and listening. And they're all great speakers, so hey, it'll be all right. I'd like to at this time thank the VFW Hall for having us here, the VFW Auxiliary for catering the lunch, and we like to support our veterans. So thank you for being a part of that today. It is my great honor to be able to introduce to you today our panel. I can't say enough about the conversations that I've had with each one of them respectively about not only their role in the community, the agency that they represent, but their hearts. Their hearts as individuals living and being stakeholders in your community is the same as your heart. They share the same frustrations. They've seen the agony probably in different ways than some of us have seen, but they've been there to share it with many of you in the room. So I would like you to welcome the panel, and I'm going to introduce them to you. Thank you very much, panel, for being here. So I'm going to start with our guest speaker. This is truly an honor. The way I met Brad was Eagle Summit Ranch. Have any of you heard of Eagle Summit Ranch? Eagle Summit Ranch is dedicated and committed through the efforts of Dave Reaver to work with veterans. And it's a beautiful ranch. I got the opportunity to go up there, and there was Brad. Brad has been very helpful to me. I have a private practice in town, and he came down. You and your wife came down. They shared 3 hours with a couple of my clients, and they gave it their all. We realized coming down we may succeed or we didn't, but I'm grateful for that, so thank you. He's our guest speaker, and he will also be a part of the panel. Next, we have from School District RE2, Jason Callan. I want to shout out to all of the school district representatives that might be here. We invited RE1, RE2, RE3, so if you're here, take a bow. Thank you for coming. You have our treasure every day. Thank you for coming, Jason. Next is Ashley Smith. Now, if you don't know Ashley Smith, here she is. She is Mayor Pro Tem. I walked in today. I did not know her. Because usually when Ashley and I are exchanging things around the town, she's in jeans, and she doesn't, well, look like this. So it's exciting to have her. She's representing the Canyon City City Council, and she is not only a council member, but she is Mayor Pro Tem, and as we go through the panel, people are going to be talking to you about their background, where they hail from, and why they're here. This is our new, right, am I correct, our Commander of Operations, Robert Hill, with the Canyon City Police Department. And he is here, is substituting for Chief Harvey, because Chief Harvey had to go to Denver. I pity Chief Harvey, so he's going to have more fun here today, right, sir? We have our new Undersheriff, Derek Irvin, and he is with the Fremont County Sheriff's Department. Derek, thank you for being here. It's just great to have two newbies here sitting beside one another. You're doing your different roles, so I think that's great. I think it was the way it was supposed to be. So thank you for coming. Our District Attorney, Molly Chisholm. I want to thank you so much, Molly, for coming. And she's going to be able to share with you about the scope and breadth of her work. And Molly actually interfaces with everybody at this table in one way or another. So we're very pleased to have her here. It makes a great team. I'm thankful that we have that here today so you can see what a great team we have. We have our newly vested County Commissioner Chair, Dwayne McFall. Our county commissioners play an integral part in our community. They also have the responsibility and accountability to be working alongside everybody else at this table, including the city of Canyon City. I would like for you to please welcome this team. Thank you. I'm pleased to also have here something that we cannot do without. We can't do without every one of these people that are here as a part of our resources. So we have, and I'm very pleased to have here, Lisa Snow with the Fremont County Health Department. Lisa. And we have over here Sylvista Health, and we're very thankful to have Sylvista Health here. And forgive me, I forgot my name, I'm senior, so, okay. Would you like to say who you are?
I'm Tammy Mosey. I'm a registered nurse at Sylvista Health. I'm Gwen Ferguson, and I'm in public information for Sylvista Health.
We're really happy to be able to have Southern Peaks Regional Treatment Center. If you all don't know where they're at, they hang out on that little back road towards Penrose. And we are so thankful to have them here. They treat some adolescents that are very challenging. And if you have a chance to talk to them, they've got some brand new programs going on out there, and we're very thankful that they could be here. Thank you for being here. Gateway to Success, and Alan, is there anything you'd like to say? Nobody wants to say?
This is Karen Morgenthaler with Gateway. I'm the executive director, and I just really appreciate all of you that are here today. Gateway offers behavioral health treatment for both substance abuse and mental health and psychiatric care.
I'm Alan Donald, I'm the program director, program coordinator for the Canyon City office.
Welcome. Melissa, here you go.
Hi, I'm Melissa Steinbach with Southern Peaks Regional Treatment Center, and we do encourage you guys to stop by. We have a lot of really interesting programs that we're doing right now with the community, including day treatment for kids that are struggling at school, and we're doing some SUD outpatient stuff for substance use disorders. So yeah, come by and see us.
Thank you. Now, to get to the most important part of your packets, you will find in there, and it is marked by, okay, I apologize deeply. Another part of our community that is very, very important, and we don't always have it in front of us because they're under the radar. They're out there working very softly in the community. In fact, as a mental health clinician, it's always, I refer to AA, I refer to NA, but sometimes it's hard to find who's in charge because they do such an effective job. There's so many of them in the community just flowing. So we are very, very happy to have representatives from AA, Al-Anon, NA, and NARCON. Is that how it's NARCON. Okay, thank you. And
I'm happy to we actually have a Celebrate Recovery as well.
okay, great. So would you like to, either one of you want to comment on it? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Corey Sachofsha, and I'm with Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm also part of the Common Thread group here in Canyon City. And we have all this information if you care to come up and check it out. Thank you.
Did you want to say something? Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Kathy Farrick. We just started Celebrate Recovery. The meetings are now starting at the Vineyard Church on Reynolds Avenue. They're every Wednesday night from 6 p.m. until around 8. We do have childcare available that's free. We have dinner available as well, and we're not really advertising in the community as far as like putting flyers out yet, but you're welcome to attend or if you know anyone. And it's not just for addictions anymore, it's for any type of mental health or healing that needs to be done. So,
Great, welcome to the community for doing that. Now I'm going to get to another thing. It's very, very important. You're going to find in your packet, it has a little marker there. It is the form for you to submit a question. I want to be very clear about this. We want to have each and every one of you have the opportunity, after you've heard Brad as a guest speaker and then as part of the panel, to ask each one of the panel members, and they're going to introduce themselves to you individually, the questions that you want to ask them. Please keep it focused on what today is about, and if the questions aren't going to be screened, if they are not focused on what this is about in terms of the questions that are going to be going to each one of the representatives, please feel free and don't feel bad that your question didn't get asked, to ask them on a sidebar after we get through. They will answer your questions, but we want to keep to the agenda. Does that make sense, everybody? And you can submit the questions to Kelly Janice. And Kelly, where are you? Oh, there she is. So we will be submitting the questions to her. She will be reviewing them for the appropriateness. And again, if your question doesn't get asked, the people on the panel will be available to you at some point to address it. Okay, thank you. All right, Brad, here you go. If you'd like to introduce yourself and go for it. Okay.
Hello guys, my name is Brad Heron, and I just want to thank every one of you for being here today. What a proactive response or approach to be able to combat a problem that you guys are seeing in your county. You know, I really want to commend you for it, because there's a lot of people that wouldn't want to admit they have a problem. Because once the people admit that they have a problem, then they got to do something about it, right? And so that's exactly what this is right here, is a place that we can come, we can talk about issues that are going on in Fremont County, and then we can go on and see how we can go and better our county. I know... Yep.
If you'd like to get lunch, please do that. I'm sorry. Go.
With the opioid epidemic that has just swept through southern Colorado, I mean, it's hard to even turn on the news today without seeing something about an overdose or a heroin bust or something like that. And you know, a lot of times we think if we live in smaller communities and things like that, we won't have the problem that the bigger cities have. But we have found out, which a lot of these people that are sitting on this panel today will tell you, that we still have the problems right here in our smaller towns in southern Colorado as well. I wasn't necessarily affected by the opioid epidemic. I was actually burned on January 7, 2003, manufacturing methamphetamine, cooking meth. I was born and raised in southwest Kansas on a big family farm. We farm about 6,500 acres of corn and about 4,800 acres of wheat. And I was just a good farm boy from Kansas that had a great family whenever I was growing up, had probably more positive role models in my life than anybody could ever ask for. And then I had a cousin that wasn't necessarily such a positive role model in my life. He was quite a bit older than me, and I just thought he was the coolest guy in the world. And he got into methamphetamine. You know, I told myself that I would never go down that road. I would never, you know, get involved with those things. But whenever I was in third grade, I didn't get involved in meth in third grade. I'm kind of telling the exact story. But whenever I was in third grade, we moved from our farm in Kansas, and my dad took a job down in Houston, Texas. So I went from living on a farm that my closest neighbor was about 3 miles away to living in Clear Lake, which is in the southern part of Houston. At that time, it was one of the fastest growing cities in America. It's where NASA is, Johnson Space Center, Mission Control, a very, very educated area of Houston. And whenever I moved there, I mean, I felt totally out of place. You know, here I was, the weird farm kid from Kansas that was into John Deere tractors and John Deere combines, and these kids were into Lexuses and Mercedes. I had no idea what a Lexus or a Mercedes even was, guys. That's a true story. One day my buddy walked up to me and said, "Brad, have you seen that new LS400 Lexus?" And I looked at him and I said, "What's that, some new type of tractor?" Because where I came from, everything was JD 4630, JD 4850. These are makes and models of John Deere tractors, guys. So LS400 had the right amount of letters and the right amount of numbers. It sounded like a tractor to me. I was wrong. I got looked by it like I was an alien from outer space. But in that, I found myself going and starting to become and act like these kids that I was running around with in Houston. You know, I got picked on, I got bullied. It was the first time that I'd ever really experienced that in life. And so what happens in life whenever we feel like that we're inadequate, or that we don't measure up, or we're against them, the other people are just different than us. A lot of times we will change who we are, we'll change how the music we listen to, the clothes we wear, especially when we're kids, to help to try to fit in with those kids. And that's exactly what I did. I got involved with the drug scene. And by the time that I was in 7th grade, I had experimented with marijuana. And then by the time that I was in 8th grade, pills that came along. Whenever I was in 9th grade, my dad came to me and said, Brad, we're going to be moving to Booker, Texas. And yeah, I said it right, Booker, Texas, in the middle of nowhere. We moved 782 miles from Houston, and we were still in the state of Texas, guys. That's a big state. That's a big state. So we moved up to the farthest north town in the panhandle of Texas, 2 miles from no man's land, Oklahoma, 35 miles from Podunk, Oklahoma. I mean, we're talking about metropolises now, guys. And so the population of Lipscomb County that I went to high school in is about, or not the population, but there's 7 people per square mile. So it's not a very big place. There's actually more cows than there are people in this area. And whenever it's 105 degrees out and the wind's blowing 75 miles an hour, everybody just seems to disappear in that part of the world too. But as we moved up there, you know, I immediately, my dad told me, he said, Brad, you have a choice to make here, son. You keep on living the way you were living and be a knucklehead, or you can go out and do something with your life. I mean, you're starting off with a clean slate. Nobody knows your business here. So I get to Booker, and I immediately portray myself as this big bad thug from Houston, Texas. You know, there's not a lot of hood about me. You know, my hood is a John Deere grade hood on a John Deere tractor. It's about how hood I am. But that's how I portrayed myself. And I wasn't really smart. You know, I was in the top 10% of the lower 1/3 of my class. Some of y'all got that right there. High schools don't always get that. I travel with speaking high schools all over the country, and sometimes they just get blank stares when I say that joke. I tell them, you guys will get it in a few years. But as I was living there in Booker, I mean, I found myself, you know, you know, I went from playing in Class 5A Texas football to playing Class 1A Texas football, which is a lot of difference. In Texas, they have shirts that say football is life and the rest is just details. And those people actually really mean it down there. But I got there, I was doing well at football. My grades weren't too bad. Things were looking good. I had all the friends. But then right after my junior year, around spring break time of my junior year, we had a random drug analysis. And I got popped for it. And I couldn't play sports for 1 fiscal year after failing that drug test. So that meant my senior year, I never had to play 1 down of football. And the second that I got labeled in a small town as a druggie, then all my friends that were my friends, well, now they weren't my friends anymore. So who did I run to? The down and outers, the people that were very accepting, the people that were doing drugs and skipping class. And that's whenever I experienced methamphetamines for my first time. By this time, my cousin, that I told you about earlier, he had just got out of prison. He had one of the first meth labs ever busted in southwest Kansas. And I went and lifted him up. I remember driving up to his trailer house, knocking on the door. He opened it up, big, wide-eyed, and big smile, and invited me in. We walked over, and he had a tray sitting on top of his coffee table that was full of white powder. And I wasn't dumb. I'd never seen meth before, but I knew what it was. And he looked at me and said, Brad, do you want to try this stuff? And I looked at him, and I remember thinking this, man, are you crazy, dude? This stuff has robbed everything from you. It's taking your wife, it's taking your kids, it's taking your house, it's taking your farm. It's taking everything from you. In less than 4 months out of prison, you're right back to doing the same thing again. I thought that, but I didn't say it. And he asked me again, said, Brad, do you want to try this stuff? I thought, well, I'll just try it once. I'll just see what it's like. I won't become that guy. For a person who does cocaine twice, about 90% of those people are going to become coke addicts. For a person who does heroin twice, about 92% of those people are going to become heroin addicts. For a person who does methamphetamines twice, 98.9% of people will become meth addicts. The statistics are staggering to see it. I had no idea what I was about to do, and I tried it for the first time. It wasn't long till I came back and tried it again. There's a poem out about meth that says this. It says, try me once, I might let you go, but try me twice, and I'll have your soul. And I remember that second time I came back and I tried it. I knew that I was pretty much hooked. At that time, my cousin looked at me and said, Brad, would you like to learn how to make this stuff? And I thought, makes it free. 19-year-old kid, you know, didn't have very much My inhibitions were lowered already, and I started making terrible choices. Within 6 months of learning how to manufacture methamphetamines, I became a full-blown meth addict, shoving a needle in my arm, shooting up drugs. I changed as a person. I went from a young man who loved and cared about his family, his friends, and his farm, and turned into somebody who didn't care about anything but myself. And if somebody wanted to get in my way, I was going to run them over just like I did on that football field. And that's where my mentality went. I did real good. I ended up getting kicked out of high school my senior year. I had to finish off my senior year in an alternative program. I was doing real good right there, wasn't I? And then I moved up to my farm. I was next in line to take over my family's farm. Things were, that had been my dream pretty much since I was young, that I would take over my family's farm one day. And ended up doing real good for about 6 months and stayed clean. And then the old friends started coming around, and I found myself right back in the same place again. I ended up walking away from my family farm for a $100 bag of cocaine one night. And people look at me and say, Brad, how could you walk away from a multi-million-dollar operation and your family's name and everything for $100 worth of cocaine? And I tell people I was a drug addict at that point in my life, and I didn't even know it. I had no clue. I thought I was just out having fun and partying. I tell myself, that bad things happen to other people. It won't happen to me. I'm just a kid now. I'm just having fun. I'll change when I get older. I ended up moving into a flea-bag hotel motel apartment in Liberal, Kansas. And on January 7th, 2003, there was a knock on my door. It was a young lady that I'd grown up with the majority of my life. She told me that there was a party going on at her house. There was a young man there that had that wanted to buy some meth and asked if I had any for sale, and I told her I had a little. We drove over to her house and sold the young man the drugs. They went into the back room and consumed the drugs. I remained in the living room just talking to her, catching up a little bit. Hadn't seen her in a while. And they came out of the room probably 30, 45 minutes later. Said, man, Brad, that was good. Can you get me more? I looked at him and said, yeah, sure. You want to go with me? So we jumped in my El Camino. We drove over to my apartment. We grabbed a duffel bag full of supplies. Drove out into the country down a very secluded 2-track road. If you don't know what that is, it's just what it sounds like. 2 tracks going in, 2 tracks going out. Not a road, just out in the middle of a big field. And we drove down to a low spot, kind of down in a gully. And it was January 7th, like I said. It was 17 degrees out that night, so we had the windows in that El Camino just cracked about 2 inches, just enough to let the fumes ventilate out. We had the heater on full blast. I had an 8x10 glass Pyrex dish, like you make casseroles or brownies or something of that nature in, that had 24 ounces of starting fluid in it. Ether, a highly, highly, highly flammable substance. This is the same substance you use on a cold winter morning to fire off a diesel engine. And I had 24 ounces of it sitting in a Pyrex dish on my lap in the front seat of an El Camino. Not a good idea by any means, guys. I was at the very final stage of producing the drug, and the young man I was with lit a cigarette. In the blink of an eye, in the flick of a lighter, my life changed dramatically. I was a big, strong young man. If you looked at me, you wouldn't have thought I was a meth addict back then. I didn't look like your typical meth addict. Now I was sitting in the front seat of my El Camino with 24 ounces of ether on fire in my lap. I looked at the young man I was with and I told him, get out, get out, get out, get out. And he jumped out of the passenger side of my vehicle. Once he jumped out, I just tried to throw the pan out after him. And whenever I threw that pan, all that ether vaporized. And there was such a combustion, such an explosion that happened at that moment that the lid doors literally sucked back shut on that vehicle. And then I was entombed and I was encased in fire. I can't tell you exactly how long I was in there, but I remember grabbing the door handle and pushing with all my might until finally that door opened up on that El Camino. I rolled out of the car and stopped, drop, and roll took on a whole new meaning at that point, guys. I hit the ground, started rolling and rolling and rolling. Finally got the fire out and I jumped up and all I had on was my boxers and one sock. Everything else had burned off of me. I was burned on 80% of my body, 3rd and 4th degree. I didn't even know there was a such thing as a 4th degree burn. The 4th degree is all the way to the bone. Right here on my chin was burned all the way to the bone. I was given less than 1/10 of 1% chance to live. 1/10. That's not very good odds, is it? You get a 10th on your report card, that's not a very good thing. But that's exactly where I was at. I mean, life changed dramatically. I was life-flighted from Liberal, Kansas to the Via Christi St. Francis Burn Center in Wichita, Kansas, where I spent 4.5 months in a drug-induced coma. I woke up, I had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to feed myself again. I was a 20-year-old invalid, and that's a pretty humbling experience as a young man. After that, you know, I met Dave Reaver, and Dave Reaver, he's been a godsend to me. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wouldn't have been for him. He told me that he wanted to train me up in public speaking, to go out and speak in high schools like he did. He told me that I'm fighting a war just like these guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and that war is the war on drugs. And that's the same war that every single one of us in this room is fighting right now, guys. We're fighting for our counties. We're fighting for our kids. We have a drug culture that has entered into our county and into our state and into the United States that is absolutely detrimental to our young people as they're growing up. We have young kids that see it as drugs as something that should be glorified, something that should be, you know, talked about. I mean, their music that they listen to talks about it. But I'm here to tell what the real results are of it. This is what really happens. I'm not saying that every kid that goes out and does drugs is going to get burned up in a meth lab explosion, no. But these scars that I wear on the outside are the exact same representation of the scars that happens on the inside to these young people whenever they start to go down that road of drugs. The scars of disappointment, the scars of embarrassment. I mean, all of those things. It's hard to admit whenever we do wrong, isn't it, guys? I know for me, it's hard sometimes to admit when we do wrong. But you know what? The best thing I ever did was admitting that I had a problem and going out and seeking for help so I could go out and do something good with what was going to be so evil in my life. My name is Brad Heron, and I approve this message. Thank you, guys.
Wow, he is an incredible person, and I know that, Brad, I don't know how you did it. And it says an awful lot about who and what you are and the support system that you have around you. I know your mom, through us negotiating this, your mom is an incredible mom, and she loves you deeply. She does. Brad has a wife. I'm sorry she wasn't here today, Autumn, and a brand new son. Oh. He's adorable.
I agree. Looks just like his daddy.
He does. He does. So with that said, I think then we'll just start with the panel and we'll just go down it, and you guys get to do the work now, okay? Thank you. And I did want to acknowledge our fire chief, Mr. DeVacchio. And I want to say something also that I feel that we need to have out there. I had somebody that I was seeing as a client, and the person was a polysubstance user, and it was obvious that whatever that individual was using was awful. And just a number of physical kinds of presentations, and then the cognitive effects, or thinking effects, this person was really in a bad place. I can't say enough about the fire department, 911 calling, because I need his help. They come. I think it's important that if you have that situation in your life, when you make that call, you do tell them that you have somebody that is high on drugs or using or whatever, so they know how to walk into the situation and they can be there for you. People sometimes say to me, oh, well, they won't come. Well, they do come, and I'm very proud of that. So would you please tell your staff and the ambulance service, thank you. Where you go? Okay, great.
Can you hear me okay? Good. All right. Good, is it afternoon almost? Oh, well, according to my watch says afternoon, so good afternoon.
Yes. Go eat too. We need to get that rolling too. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. You need to eat too. My name is Jason Cullen, and presently I serve as the Director of Safety and Truancy for Fremont RE2 School District. I do want to point out also Paul Bruiser, who's from also RE1, who's actually my counterpart over in RE1 School District. And my background in history is that I started off actually as a school psychologist and worked in that field for 7 years. Within that, we dealt a lot with students who had special education needs as well, but also dealt with many other things, including impacts of drug use, and not only drug use by the kids themselves, but also drug use by the parents that ultimately affected the kids as well. Now, what that is also transposed over to is that also within coming over here into Fremont RE2 School District, what I've noticed and what I've heard a great deal about and what I've seen and where that affects is like there are parts that affect kids, but more importantly there's also parts that affect parents, which ultimately affects the kids. So kids who don't show up to school, things like that, little mystery things that occur. So what we have to do is, as part of the school district, is we also work with our partners within law enforcement as well too, because in schools we're also mandatory reporters. You know, we have to relay that information also to law enforcement and for them to do sort of investigation. But ultimately what we're here for, even within Fremont RE2, I mean, and amongst other school districts, is to get the help where it's needed. Yeah, we can punish them. We can like refer them, let's say, over to law enforcement if there's issues and other kinds of things. But really what we really want to do is help provide assistance where it's needed. So we include our other partners in that process, you know, Sol Vista. We include also other mental health agencies as they're needed. Because it's one thing to punish or things like that, but ultimately what it comes down to is they need help, and people need help. On a personal note, I remember there was a kid who was in 5th grade and at your district area with that, and who was hooked on black tar heroin. Yeah. So, yes, the kid got help. But the other thing, though, too, is that we also found out that it translates and works also back with the parent. Yep, exactly right there. So what was going on within that household as well, too. Not only within that household, but what ends up happening is it also turned into a larger scale investigation as well, too. So it might start off as something like, oh, the kid's not attending school, but ends up going down other routes as we start to look into that a little bit more. But we really want to provide help. I think the other thing that we start to look at and we need to think about, though, too, is even as like taxpayers and things like that, that kids who have difficulties and everything like that, well, and families that do, ultimately that affects taxpayers down the road as well, too. So there's a large financial cost that comes embedded with these addictions and with drugs. I had a coworker as well, too, that it ended up being almost like what Brad was talking about. It's like who went through some major surgeries and had some major pain issues. And it's like, here, try this. No, this is a prescription medication. So that went all across that board and everything like that. But it was almost like, yeah, it felt good. And pretty soon they got more and more and more addicted after a while. And this ended up being a coworker of mine as well, too. So it has drastic impacts not only on a professional scale, but also on personal levels as well, too. So, you know, with that, I mean, thank you, Brad, for all that inspiration and everything like that. I'm sitting there, it's like, I got this. But anyway, but we're here to offer help. I mean, school districts, it's, you know, there's the old saying, it's reading, writing, and math and education anymore. No. Education is much more than that. There's social emotional functioning, there's mental health supports and things like that. But we're there as also a resource as well too. And we can steer that and provide that assistance where it's necessary. So thanks for allowing me.
Hi, I'm Ashley Smith. I represent City Council for Canyon City. And I guess my point is maybe the cost for the taxpayers of the addictions and drug addictions. Not only some of the things that we see a direct cost, well, most days, over a third of our budget goes to support the Canyon City Police Department. And they're the ones that face every day the cost and the implications of increased crime and interactions with drug addiction and 911 calls as well. and arming them with the resources that they need to fight crime and drug addiction in Canyon City, and they work with the Sheriff's Department as well. But on other levels, we also see a lot of need and increased costs in our parks. There's a lot of drug use happening in our parks, especially Veterans Park and along the Riverwalk. We've had to hire night security to close our bathrooms at night and clear the parks of people. And those people will just come back later on that our restrooms have been vandalized so much that we've had to close the bathrooms to the public. And it's a great cost to us to do that over and over again to fix that vandalism. Sometimes the folks will jam the doors into the bathrooms and stay in there to get their fix and hopefully get maybe enhancements like that. And that's a cost to our society as well. And another thing that we are doing is we have already purchased the needle depositories to put in our public restrooms. It's a little bit alarming when you take a kid to the park and realize that the addicts who have been at the park are throwing the syringes up into the gutters where you go at the park. And our Parks Department does a fabulous job to make sure that our families and children are safe, but it also puts them in jeopardy as well to have to take care of that. And so those are just some of the little costs to our society, but the bigger costs come with those of our breakdown of our families and those face-to-face stories of lives that are ruined, devastation to our families, children who are growing up in dysfunctional homes. That is a great cost to our community overall. And that's something that City Hill faces every day. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Hill. I'm Patrol Division or Support Services, Operations Division Commander. I've been in that role now for 3 years. Can you hear me at all?
You're good.
That's
okay,
better.
Sorry
That's
about
better.
that. So I've been with Canyon City PD for 22 years. I've been in law enforcement for 24 total years. And never in my career did I have to deal with heroin until, I think, 3-4 years ago, it started really surfacing here in Canyon. One case here and there, but now it's daily. Our officers are finding heroin or remnants of heroin or dealing with people who have just used heroin every single day. And it's not just heroin, it's not just the illegal drug that we're having a problem with. It's painkillers that get people hooked, and then they have to find something else because their doctor has now cut them off. So they're looking for this faster, cheaper high, and it's heroin. The police department is doing what they can. Currently, we are 8 officers short on patrol right now. That's 2 officers per shift. So those 3 to 4 officers that are out there handling the 911 calls, the traffic accidents, the thefts, things like that, they're stretched pretty thin. So our drug effort, the chief decided he's going to take one of our patrol sergeants and make them a drug person. That's his sole function. Once we start getting some people out of the academy, we get them on the streets, we're going to add more people to our drug unit, so we'll have a 2 to 3 person drug unit, 2 officers and a sergeant. They can focus solely on all of your complaints. This house is dealing, that house is dealing. So we can survey, we can try to do controlled buys, things like that. I don't want to get into too much of how we investigate, but they can focus on the investigation part. We cannot do it alone at the police department. We've got to have the sheriff's department's help. They can't do it alone. We have to have Molly's help at the district attorney's office. She can't do it. We cannot arrest our way out of this drug problem. We've got to treat it. And one of the things that the chief has done to help us treat it is he's secured a grant. It's going to be called a co-responders grant. And what that means is that we're going to be able to hire an officer who will be dedicated to going out to help out with mental health issues. Because mental health issues, there's a lot of drug abuse in that circle. So we're going to be able to help there. That grant is also going to help with our homeless, so we can start helping them get into programs, paying for them to get some treatment so they can get off of these drugs. Because the impact of the drugs is not just a drug issue for us. It's a crime issue as well. So where do I get the $20 to buy that little shot of heroin? I'm stealing it out of your car. Okay, I'm stealing it from Walmart, and then I'm gonna go sell the property so that I can get this. We have a community or a group of people that's how they sell their drugs. It's through items that have been stolen. They take those in and they sell them. So we're all victims of drug abuse, every single one of us. So we need our help. The agencies here need your help to help us find these people, get them into treatment, and prosecute those that need to be prosecuted. Say, we have to do the arrest, Molly's got to do the prosecution. So we're all the team, everybody in this community. The fire department, I can't tell you how good they are on I'm sure Chief DeVecchio can tell us how many times they've had to use Narcan to save somebody's life. I can tell you that last year, 3 officers saved 4 lives last year, just using Narcan on people that, had we not been there, or the fire department coming in directly behind us, those people would have passed away. On our sidewalks. Okay, not just in the homes, but on our sidewalks, in our parks. So if you see somebody out there that's struggling, you need to let us know, or you need to let Rocky Mountain Behavioral Health help, so they can come in to help them with their drug addiction. Please help. You need it. Thank you.
My name's Derek Irvin. Originally started with Fremont County SO in 1996. Was there for about 7.5 years when I went over to work with Robert and the guys over at PD. As far as numbers are concerned, I knew Robert was going to bring over. Can you guys hear me at all?
Just a little bit.
As far as numbers are concerned, I knew Robert was going to bring over arrest stats, yada yada. And I knew that the sheriff's office stats were going to be roughly the same because we're dealing with the same individuals in the county as we did in the city. Because they're not just committing crime, property crime, violent crime against persons in one area of this county. It's county-wide, and it's even flowing in from El Paso, Pueblo, Custer, Chaffee, Teller, everything around us. But what I wanted to bring to this was some detention stats, because that's one thing that's overlooked as far as law enforcement goes in any county, I believe. Back when I started in '96, the jail would be busting at the seams with confined and pretrial inmates, and we normally hovered around 96 then. Fast forward to 2019, our averages for incarcerations are anywhere between 190 and 210 inmates per day. Out of that, if I had to offer up a guess, anywhere between 65 and 75% of those inmates do have a substance abuse issue, which is being handled in-house under pretrial constraints and programs, whether it's medical, mental health, what have you. Now, between April and December, medical staff in the facility had positively identified 43 different incidents involving inmates detoxing from opioids. Figure that in the medical cost to take care of those inmates and get them coming off that detox, as well as detox transports from our facility to other facilities in Colorado Springs or Pueblo, in which we had roughly 10 in the last 6 months. And each of those transports cost us on the back end overtime for officers to come in because we are short-staffed in the jail. We are also short-staffed on the patrol side. But we figured up each of those inmate transports roughly cost us in the office, as well as the taxpayers of Fremont County, $68 per transport, and that does not include maintenance on the vehicles or fuel costs. So in totality of this, between the law enforcement side, detention side, mental health side, Rocky Mountain behavioral side, this is not just a specific law enforcement issue. This is a county-wide issue that needs to be addressed as such. From the people out there using the drugs to, by the time they get to the district attorney's office for criminal filing charges, to sentencing. It's a county-wide issue. It needs to be looked at that way. from every perspective and every resource available within the community.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Okay. I'm Molly Chilson. I'm the District Attorney of the 11th Judicial District. Our judicial district is Fremont County, Park County, Custer, and Chaffey. So 4 counties, large rural area. First, I want to thank the people who are here from peer support groups and treatment. I also saw some folks from probation. This attendance is wonderful. And before I talk about some of my perspective over time with drug enforcement here in the 11th and in Colorado, I want to say that I really appreciate those who are holding a door open for addicts in a way that we in law enforcement and the system just can't. And I want to say how important I think that is. Oftentimes, you all are going to reach more people and reach them more deeply than anything we do, even if we're sending people to prison for decades, right? Okay. So I want that out there. When I started in prosecution 20 years ago, when I first started, is it okay? Can you hear me? Okay. No. All right. When I started in prosecution 20 years ago, possession of a controlled substance, Schedule II, which is both methamphetamine and heroin,